Okay, well, the town hall meeting today, there's a lot to report, and I'm going to make it as joyful as possible, because it is a joyous season. However, we are facing continued challenges with the budget, with the bond, and a couple of other items I want to mention. Let me start with the budget. The budget for the state of California, again, our cash receivables aren't all that great. And the Chancellor's Office, State Chancellors, had given us a Tier 1 and a Tier 2 budget reduction. Tier 2 being an additional statewide cut or statewide reduction in January. They often call it a trigger. Well, it appears the trigger is going to happen, and the district is going to go from a $28 million reduction. Our district, the LACCD, a $28 million reduction to a $40 million reduction, additional $11 million. What that means for the 9 colleges in fiscal year 11-12 is, thank goodness, the board had approved that the district reserves or end of balance for all 9 colleges will be used to backfill each college's reduction of the additional $11 million. So in 11-12 fiscal year, which ends June 30 of this, June 30 of 2012, we are covered. However, in 12-13, that particular decision to the district following and backfilling whatever reductions we have is not with us. The prognosis in 12-13 is going to be a tough year. We're looking at a possible another 5 to 10% statewide reduction in community college allocation. It's hard to tell because, you know, we're gonna know about the trigger for 11-12 December 14th. That's when the state has announced they'll announce the trigger. That's my understanding. I think it's December 14th. It appears the trigger is going to happen, so we're going to go to a $40 million reduction. We won't know the budget for 11-12 until January. That's when the governor will present his budget to the legislature. Then we've got from January to June and beyond sometimes with regard to the legislature making the final decisions and approvals and and then passing a budget bill for the governor to sign. The worst case scenario picture is they're looking at a possible ending balance of, we had 90 million this year, we're looking at 11-12, 70 million to 12-13 down to 28 million or something, and even perhaps worse than that. That's not good news. Okay, so that's the budget situation. We've met our targets. We met our FTES targets. We're meeting our financial targets. However, we need to be a little vigilant and making sure that our spending over the next 6 months is looked at very carefully, and our revenue projections are correct. I would like an ending balance for mission. Last year we had an ending balance about 1.3 million. We are not projecting an ending balance of that magnitude. We're projecting something a lot smaller than that. So we need to find ways to save and conserve and at the same time get ready for 12-13. Okay, bond. Fortunately, the Media Arts Building, we had a walkthrough by some potential contractors. There's movement by the surety company to move forward with getting a potential contractor to resume the Media Arts Building. The discussion between the current contractor, who is no longer there, SMC, and the district is ongoing. They're having several, their attorneys and our attorneys are meeting to come up with a final agreement. And it boils down to what they consider what they did we did X amount of work, you owe us this amount of money, and we're saying, no, you didn't do X amount of work, and we don't owe you that kind of money. So that's what the negotiations are about, is what percentage of work was completed. And it is fenced off. We've looked into coverings, and I know a lot of people are concerned about rust, and gee, the building's gonna, be impacted by the weather and so on. But I've been assured by the engineers that no, the exterior of the building is such that rust and all of that is not an issue. East Campus is moving very well. Josh is finishing up the final numbers for FF&E, furniture and equipment, and we're going to order that furniture and equipment. Part of our campus is the East Campus. We'll need an administrator there in charge at night, and I think we'll need some additional sheriff or public safety staffing, because that is another part of our campus, so we need to pay attention to that. The ongoing discussion with Gateway and FTR is still occurring. There was a mediation meeting with FTR last week to try to come up with an agreement where they will move on and be terminated. They made some progress, but it hasn't been finalized. Remember, FTR, it's not just Mission, it's Valley and East LA College they're involved with. So we're talking, and West LA, so that we're talking all colleges they're involved with at this point. So it's a big chunk of money. They're very concerned about leaving that, but on the other hand, they're concerned about their reputation. It's one thing to be terminated mutually agreeable, in other words, you resign versus being fired. So they don't want to be fired. It's not good on their record. Gateway has decided not to go to the hearing, but to mediate. So they're also going through mediation. And again, I think a lot of things are going to come to a head after the holidays in January. A lot of this is going to be worked out. Build LACCD will be our interim project manager for the bond program. And one last thing that I want to bring to your attention, as you all know, there's been concern about maintenance and operation costs for the future of every college that is building out. And so there was a moratorium which will be lifted December 14th was the deadline on projects that were not contracted. That impacted us because our central plant was not contracted, so the central plant is in a moratorium. There has been continued discussion regarding this moratorium by the building review panel. If you recall, the chancellor asked a building review panel made up of experts to develop recommendations for the district on the future of the building program at LACCD. The review panel is coming up with their recommendations, interesting enough, December 14th, and will present them to the board. There's been some discussion by the review panel that we may want to extend the moratorium, extend it out, and beyond December 14th until next year. The discussion revolves around doing a very thorough analysis of each project and whether or not the college can support its M&O, maintenance and operation utilities. We may see that happen. I don't have a crystal ball, but from what I'm hearing, it is being considered as a recommendation to the board. And if that's the case, then we have a moratorium that will continue